Have you ever wondered what drives ordinary people to stand up against powerful empires, risking everything for a chance at freedom? What compels someone to leave behind their family, take up arms, and fight against impossible odds? These are the questions at the heart of Africa's wars of liberation. Conflicts that not only reshaped the continent, but also redefined the meaning of freedom itself. Imagine living in a world where your land, your culture, and even your identity are controlled by a distant power. For millions of Africans, this was not a nightmare but a daily reality. The wars of liberation were more than just battles. They were the final, desperate push to reclaim what had been stolen, the right to govern their own lives. These wars were fought not by trained soldiers in far-off lands, but by farmers, teachers, and ordinary citizens who had been pushed too far for too long. But here's the thing. While history often remembers the famous leaders and the pivotal battles, the real story lies in the countless untold narratives of the everyday heroes who made victory possible. In this video, we're going to dive into these lesser-known stories, the personal struggles, the acts of bravery, and the unwavering spirit that fueled these liberation movements. Stay with us until the end, and you'll discover not just the history, but the humanity behind these conflicts. You'll learn about the unsung heroes who sacrificed everything for a future they might never see, and how their legacy continues to shape the world today. This is more than just a history lesson. It's a journey into the heart of what it means to fight for freedom. To truly understand the wars of liberation in Africa, we need to step back and look at the forces that set the stage for these monumental struggles. For centuries, Africa was a continent rich in culture, resources, and diversity. But with the advent of European colonization in the late 19th century, everything began to change. The so-called scramble for Africa saw European powers carve up the continent, drawing borders without regard for the people who lived there. Entire societies were subjugated, their lands exploited, and their identities suppressed. By the mid-20th century, the winds of change were beginning to blow. World War II had weakened Europe's grip on its colonies, and a growing sense of nationalism was sweeping across Africa. The call for independence grew louder, and what started as peaceful protests quickly escalated into full-scale wars of liberation. These were not just conflicts for territory, but battles for the soul of a continent that had been denied its voice for too long. The wars of liberation took place across Africa, from the northern deserts of Algeria to the southern plains of Rhodesia. Each conflict was unique, shaped by local circumstances and the nature of colonial rule. Yet, they were all part of a broader struggle, a collective effort to break free from the shackles of colonialism and reclaim autonomy. In this section, we'll introduce the key players and movements that would come to define these wars, setting the stage for the personal stories and deeper analysis to come. Now that we've set the stage, it's time to shift our focus to the heart of these wars, the people. While history books often highlight the leaders and the major battles, the true essence of the wars of liberation lies in the stories of the ordinary men and women who risked everything for freedom. These are the unsung heroes, individuals whose names may not be well known, but whose contributions were vital to the success of the liberation movements. Take, for example, Mariana Anapaz, a woman who played a crucial role in Angola's liberation movement. She wasn't a soldier on the front lines, but her work in mobilizing women and coordinating resources was just as important. Her story, like many others, is a testament to the diverse ways in which ordinary people contributed to these monumental efforts. In the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya, young fighters, barely out of their teens, took up arms against a much stronger British force, driven by the desire to reclaim their land and dignity. These personal stories add depth and emotion to the historical narrative. They remind us that the wars of liberation were not just political events. They were deeply personal struggles fought by people with families, dreams, and fears. By focusing on these individual experiences, we gain a more nuanced understanding of the true cost of freedom. These are the stories that history often overlooks, but they are the stories that need to be told. As we continue, we'll delve deeper into these narratives, exploring how ordinary citizens, women, children, and local leaders played crucial roles in the fight for liberation. These stories will not only inform, but also inspire, showing that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit is capable of extraordinary things. As we explore the stories of those who fought in the wars of liberation, it's impossible to ignore the vital role played by women in many liberation movements. Across Africa, women were not just supporters or bystanders. They were active participants, leaders, and strategists. Yet their contributions are often underrepresented in the mainstream narrative. In Eritrea, for example, women made up nearly 30% of the fighters in the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF. These women were not only on the front lines, but also involved in logistics, intelligence, and medical care. Their involvement challenged traditional gender roles and laid the groundwork for gender equality in post-independence Eritrea. Similarly, in Angola, the Organização da Mulher de Angola played a crucial role in the country's fight for independence. These women organized protests, smuggled weapons, and provided support to the male fighters, all while caring for their families and communities. By highlighting the role of women in these movements, we gain a deeper understanding of the social dynamics at play. These women were fighting not just for national liberation, but also for their rights and recognition in their societies. Their stories remind us that the struggle for freedom is often intertwined with the fight for equality, and their contributions had a lasting impact on the post-colonial societies that emerged from these wars. As we continue to uncover these narratives, it becomes clear that the story of Africa's liberation is not complete without recognizing the vital role that women played. Their courage and determination continue to inspire new generations, both in Africa and around the world. The wars of liberation were not just about ending colonial rule. They were about shaping the future of entire nations. The broader socio-political impact of these wars is still felt across Africa today. These conflicts laid the foundation for the modern African states, influencing everything from political structures to social dynamics and economic policies. Take Zimbabwe, for example. The Rhodesian Bush War was a brutal conflict that ultimately led to the independence of Zimbabwe in 1980. However, the war left deep scars on the nation's political landscape. The new government, led by Robert Mugabe, was shaped by the years of armed struggle, leading to a highly centralized and authoritarian regime. The impact of this war continues to influence Zimbabwe's politics today, as the country grapples with the legacy of its liberation struggle. In Algeria, the War of Independence from France not only led to the creation of a new nation, but also had a profound impact on France itself. The war deeply divided French society, leading to political crises and influencing France's post-colonial policies. Algeria, on the other hand, emerged as a strong advocate for anti-colonial movements worldwide, influencing liberation struggles in other parts of Africa and beyond. The socio-political impact of these wars also extended to the economic sphere. Many African nations, upon gaining independence, struggled with the economic legacies of colonialism. The exploitation of resources and the lack of infrastructure left these new states in a precarious position. However, the sense of national pride and the drive for self-sufficiency spurred efforts to rebuild and develop. The struggles of these post-liberation societies highlight the ongoing challenges faced by African nations as they navigate their paths to stability and prosperity. Understanding the broader impact of these wars helps us appreciate the complexities of post-colonial Africa. These conflicts were not just about gaining independence. They were about redefining what it meant to be a nation, a people, and a society. The legacies of these wars continue to shape the continent, influencing everything from governance to identity.
The wars of liberation in Africa were not just local struggles. They were deeply intertwined with global political forces, especially the Cold War. As African nations fought for their independence, they became battlegrounds in the ideological conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both superpowers sought to expand their influence in the region, often by supporting different factions in these liberation movements. In Angola, for example, the Cold War played a crucial role in shaping the course of the conflict. The Soviet Union and Cuba provided significant support to the MPLA, Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, while the United States and South Africa backed the opposing UNITA, National Union for the Total Independence of Angola. This foreign intervention turned the Angolan struggle into one of the most complex and prolonged conflicts in Africa, with devastating consequences for the local population. Similarly, in Mozambique, the Frelimo, Front for the Liberation of Mozambique movement, received support from the Soviet Union and China, while the anti-communist forces were backed by the West. These international alliances not only provided the necessary resources for the liberation movements, but also influenced their strategies and ideologies. The involvement of external powers often intensified the conflicts, making them part of the larger global struggle between capitalism and communism. The international dimension of these wars had lasting effects on post-independence Africa. The relationships forged during these conflicts influenced the foreign policies of newly independent nations, aligning them with either the Eastern or Western blocs. This, in turn, affected their development trajectories, as these countries navigated the complex dynamics of the Cold War, while trying to establish stable, independent governments. Understanding the international influence on Africa's wars of liberation reveals the complexities of these struggles. These were not just fights for national independence, they were also proxy wars in a global ideological battle. The impact of this global involvement continues to shape the political and economic landscapes of Africa today. As we've journeyed through the wars of liberation in Africa, we've uncovered stories of immense courage, sacrifice, and resilience. These wars were not just about casting off the yoke of colonial rule. They were about reclaiming identity, dignity, and a future shaped by the people of Africa themselves. From the personal narratives of unsung heroes to the broader socio-political impacts that continue to resonate today, the legacy of these conflicts is profound and far-reaching. The wars also highlighted the significant role that international forces played in Africa's struggle for independence. The Cold War's influence turned local battles into global conflicts, and the decisions made during this period continue to influence the continent's political landscape. But despite these external pressures, the heart of these movements was always the people, ordinary citizens who rose up to demand the right to determine their own destinies. So, as we reflect on these monumental events, one question remains. How do these stories of liberation inspire us today? Can we draw parallels between the struggles of the past and the ongoing fight for justice and equality in our world? If you found this exploration of Africa's wars of liberation insightful, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We have more stories to tell, more histories to uncover, and your support helps us bring these important narratives to light. Don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. What other liberation struggles would you like us to explore? Your feedback helps shape our future content, and we look forward to hearing from you.